Neat Nation, welcome back to the Drew P. Whiskey Show, where this week we're talking about Heaven Hill. We're getting all up into Heaven Hill, specifically the bottle and bond bourbons. I say bourbons not because there's multiple under the Heaven Hill brand, certainly from Heaven Hill Distillery there are, but there are not currently in circulation multiple bottled and bond bourbons under the Heaven Hill brand. But there's quasi-Dusties, discontinued products like this Heaven Hill 6-year white label bottled in bond. We're going to talk about these. Definitely. First, if you're new to the channel, welcome. There's a lot of deep dives in bourbon. There's a lot of hot takes about the bourbon industry. Maybe some philosophies, maybe some guidance for you at the Drew P. Whiskey channel. So, like, comment, but mainly subscribe. That's the important one. And also a quick pitch for Thursday nights, 8 o'clock Central Time. I do live streams with my friend, Brian Bikey, from the Abandoned Bourbon channel. Swell dude. We just yuck it up. We taste blind whiskeys, little bourbon competition. But we also tackle kind of a hot topic in the world of bourbon every week. So check us out. Just be back here at this channel on Thursdays at 8 o'clock, and you'll see it. And it will be swell. You can join our squad at that point. We'll welcome you into the nation. So to get ready for these Heaven Hill products today, I'm going to break them down, kind of a what's the deal style video here. I'm just warming up with a little Heaven Hill juice under the Elijah Craig brand. This is the rye though, and while this video is not a what's the deal with Elijah Craig rye, I do gotta say this is awesome. It rocks. It's a $30 rye, and it's got good oak. It's got richness, it's got sweetness, it's got spice. Is it the spiciest rye ever? No. Is it the most refined rye ever? No. But gosh, this is probably Drew P's best value in rye whiskey now. That would be the Elijah Craig rye. It's not available everywhere. It's creamy. It's baking spices. Got a touch of herbs in there. The higher rye is evident. But because it's Kentucky style, 51% rye, it's not a spice bomb by any stretch. It's kind of reminiscent of Elijah Craig small batch, but the added spice is phenomenal. Every time I come back to this, I'm just like, man, yes, let's go. This is a crushable rye whiskey. So, on the Drew scale, which again has no formal method or madness, like a 4 out of 5? Yeah. I mean, if we're going, that makes it sound low though, because if it's 8 out of 10 or 80 out of 100, probably upper 8s, 8.72 when you factor in value. If you're just taking the quality of the whiskey, I mean, it's good. It's not phenomenal. It's almost great, but it's not phenomenal. But the value's amazing. Okay, we'll set that guy aside. I feel like I'm palletized now. I'm ready to do this thing. So let's talk about Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond. What's the deal with these Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond products? Well, let's do the history first. So we'll set this guy aside and we'll talk about the white label Bottled and Bond. This was a Kentucky exclusive product, bourbon, from Heaven Hill. Yeah, surprise. 100 proof, being that it's bottled and bond. And the MSRP and what you could actually get it for ranged from $12 to $15. Very little money that you had to spend to get this product. And it was generally known among bourbon enthusiasts that you would bring a case of this home every time you went to Kentucky because it's great for everyday sipping. It's got enough robust character, which if you're into bourbon cocktails, this would be a great bourbon to use in that. It's got oak, it's got sweetness, it's got some funky, nutty stuff. It's got some spice. It holds up. It's bourbon. Like, this is Kentucky bourbon. And the bottle style kind of matched. You know, it's the square bottle. It's got a screw top. It's not screaming quality exactly, but the juice inside was far superior to the branding and the general cost of this packaging. So Heaven Hill, I mean, was really the darling of bourbon enthusiasts because of this particular product. It was a gift to people who loved whiskey, specifically to whiskey insiders, the people who knew in Kentucky, where they could always go get it. I mean, it was always on the shelf. Then 2018 happened. Second half of 2018, they're like, you know what? We're not gonna do this anymore. Like, it was fun while it lasted, but it's over now. And there was not much rejoicing. There was much bemoaning. There was grievance. Made people sad about that. And indeed, it went away. Once the announcement was made that this label was being discontinued, people rushed the shelves, and it was gone before you could say haboob. Now, immediately, the discontinuing of this product was met with, like, well, what are they going to do? Like, where's the juice going? Granted, we know demand for bourbon, particularly aged bourbon, like 6 and above, is pretty high. And were they selling this for less than they could get for it? Yes, they could. When they did release the statement saying this is going away, they said, we're trying to make sure we have enough whiskey to feed Elijah Craig and some limited age-stated releases, like Elijah Craig 12-year. We've now seen the introduction of barrel-proof Elijah Craig picks. They've dropped some high-age stuff in the William Heaven Hill line and with the Heaven Hill 27. Are they introducing a lot more age-stated products? No, not really. But roughly 9 months later, they did introduce one, and that is the Heaven Hill 7-year bottled and bond. Pretty much the exact same specs as this guy, right? This diamond in the rough, like very rough aesthetics, was repackaged, the aesthetics updated, made a little bit more classy, still kind of understated, but more classy, with the addition of 1 year in the age statement. So we've gone from 6 years old to 7 years old. Now here's the downside. Again, I'm not going to fault Heaven Hill for this. It makes sense. They were underpricing. They were undervaluing this product. And so they raised the price from 12 to 15 for 6 year, which is crazy, to 40, and now it's like 50 for the 7-year product. That's a Mondo increase. I'll spare you my take on what I think this is worth, or what I think this is worth, really until the end. Although I will say this was an insane value at 12 to 15. So we'll talk about what I think this is worth. We'll talk about what I think this is worth when I do the taste off. Because, I haven't actually tasted these side by side. I've had this before. I've had this before. These are both sealed bottles. We're going to do some bottle pops, drop some tasting notes, make some final conclusions. But in short, the deal with Heaven Hill 7-year bottled and bond is it was the replacement for a much-loved niche product. And I say niche again because it was really for those who knew. Now this guy's getting distributed outside of Kentucky. I got this in Texas. My dad picked it up for me. And it's been slowly getting churned out to more and more states. I'm not sure how many states this is in right now. Not all of them. It's not in Wisconsin, I can tell you that. Dang it, I got flipping crap in my eye. One final note on these things before we move on to the bottle pop section. It's a section of this video I'm most excited about. Mash bill. 78% corn. It's a lot of corn. 10% rye. That's not a lot of rye. Although Heaven Hill products tend to be spicy, nutty, and funky. Not super spicy. Not beam level spicy. Which doesn't have that much rye either. Anyway, it's kind of odd. Probably a yeast thing. 78% corn, 10% rye, 12% malted barley. Okay? Alright. So, let's get some of my favorite tasters out here. These are Scotch glasses. They're a little dainty. They got stemmed wear, but I really like the way they channel fumage up into my nostrils. Normally I would do my sensual bottle pop, and granted I will with this one. This is plastic, right? That's just not exciting, but here we go anyway. Heaven Hill 6-year bottled and bond. This is my last one. You're welcome. Okay, that was, yeah. Plastic tops are a bummer. But actually good for keeping stuff fresh. Really nutty. Nutty nose coming out the bottle. 6-year on the left. We'll put the 7-year on the right. Here we go. Nice bottle pop. Real cork, not synthetic. I would kind of expect a synthetic cork. A lot of people are moving to those. Good for long-term storage. Fred Minnick is anti-synthetic cork, but the real corks, he says that he can taste the syntheticness, which maybe he can, but maybe it's in his head. The real corks, they just sometimes don't seal well. They dry out. They can get stuck in the bottle. There's a lot to not like about real corks, too. And they can also mess up a whiskey. So as much as a synthetic cork can, maybe a real cork even more. That's not what we're talking about in this video. Noses. 6 years brash. I get a touch of grain, actually, on this. It's been a long time since I had this product. It's not super young. It's 6 years old. But I get a touch of raw grain here. Not much. Plenty of young alcohol. It's peanutty, loads of cinnamon, like fresh cracked black pepper. This is a wild one. This is cowboy bourbon right here. This guy has more sweetness in oak immediately. Oak's not super pronounced. We're only at 7 years old. But it's got a richness, more caramel, maybe a touch of vanilla. It's more desserty. Like this is you throw your shot glass down on the bar, which I don't have one of, but you're like, give me another whiskey. And they pour it out of an unmarked bottle. Yeah, that's kind of the vibe of this on the nose. Not communicating for me much in the terms of something that I'm excited for. I'm not excited to taste this now. Like if I was tasting this in a blind, I'd be like, okay, here we go. Because it smells young. Yeah. Has some youthful characteristics. Whereas this guy is nicely balanced. I mean, maybe this is a well-aged craft whiskey or it's a standard kind of Kentucky bourbon. Not bad. 7 is winning on the nose. Substantially. It's not even close. Now we'll get into the palate. Much creamier, much more sweet than I would have anticipated based on the nose. Pretty corny. I mean, granted, it's high corn, not a lot of barrel time, or not a lot of barrel character, at least on this. But it's like chewy corn pudding with the black pepper and cinnamon are there. So not at all bad on the palate. Not at all. Crushable. I mean, we're 100 proof on these. This smelled young and punchy, but it's one of those that I could take on the golf course and be like, oh, yeah, pour me 3. And then, if I start knocking back some birdies, I'm going to get a little whoopsie or tipsy, whichever, before I get to hole, before I make the turn. It's nice. It's fine. It's good. And, that's about it. Far from remarkable. Like a $12 to $15 bourbon, I think would never be remarkable. It's a remarkable value still. Like there's much worse whiskey out there at this price, but it's not beyond good at all. On the Drew scale, we were talking about, 87.2 for the rye. I'm in the 80 range on this, factoring in the value too. Anyway, all right. 7-year palate. Whereas there was a corny sweetness here, it's getting into caramel. It's not deep. It's not salted caramel. It's nowhere close to brown sugar. But it is past like the simple syrup stage. It's kind of honey-ish, but because Heaven Hill is so nutty and kind of spicy and funky, it is delivering a more robust flavor similar to caramel. Neither one of these things is overly fruity. Maybe some kind of like dried apple, like you get those apple chips, maybe a little bit of that in the 6. And then maybe a little pear in the Heaven Hill, but it's definitely shrouded underneath the nuttiness and spiciness that can show up among younger Heaven Hill products. It can kind of age out a little bit depending on how much oak is delivered, depending on how fruity a particular barrel gets. But plenty of nutty funk showing up in both of these products. That said, this is a much more rich pour. The viscosity is very similar, but this one has a deeper sweetness And like I said, the fruitiness is probably a little bit more pronounced, though subtle. This has more wood on the nose that carries through to the palate, and I like that. You guys know I'm big on the oak, big oak guy. When I first tasted this with my dad, I was actually underwhelmed. But it kind of depends on the day, right? Today I haven't drunk any top shelf whiskey. These are my first pours with the rye for tonight, even though it's a Saturday. I'm drinking a little bit less these days. And given what's been on my palate, this is standing out as actually quite nice. So let's talk value here. And what we're going to try and do is give it a fair shake, right? I mean, it's probably not fair to compare this one to this, though we will, certainly. So let's start here. $12 to $15. The value on this is great. It's fantastic. Secondary value on this is probably $40 or something these days, which is crazy. I get why you would spend $40 for it, because it will be a collector's item. It will be worth a large amount in the future. That said, the whiskey inside is not worth a large amount. So if you're like at a dusty bar paying for pours of this, it's sort of fun, but there are way better values out there that aren't dusties. And it's hard to call anything that was discontinued in 2018 a dusty, but it will be. I know how this goes. I've seen this movie before. If they were to keep this product on the shelf and just raise the price, I think $20. It's an awesome $20 product. It's better than Old Tub, which is 100 proof bottled in bond from Jim Beam. This is better than that. Not loads better than that. It turns down the nuttiness slightly, maybe ups the viscosity a bit. So, for what it is, it's great. Probably up to $20. It's a bummer that it's gone. Now this guy. Set this aside. Taking it on its own for the $40 MSRP that it was launched at, I think that's a good deal, right? I mean, these days we're saying $10 per year of age. So that would make this in the $70 category. Now for a craft whiskey or a source whiskey, that would be the standard price, which would hurt me. I do not like buying young whiskeys for $70. What I really like doing is buying, like an 8-year for $60. That still feels pretty good. 7-year for $40 holds up. It's okay. I'm okay paying that. And the quality is about what I would expect from a 7-year Kentucky bourbon. Particularly one that's batched, not a single barrel. I think some of the barrels going into this are probably singing. Some of those probably crush. The blend is good. If we're at 80 here, we're at 87.2 here, 85. Solid bourbon. Classic bourbon profile. Decent design, bottled in bond, that's cool. And I generally like Heaven Hill. So now I think this one we got for $50. So it was released at $40, but this one was on the shelf at a place that generally charges MSRP, and it was at $50. Okay, fine. Still okay at $50. I'm not okay higher than that. Like, I wouldn't pay more than $50 for this. I don't think this is really getting traded for much on secondary. People are probably swapping it for a bit more than the MSRP in states where it's not distributed. But I would just think twice. Like, you don't need to go like, oh, I gotta find this. You don't really. It's fine. And if you want to try a good Heaven Hill product for $50, 7 years, okay, go for it. So that's it. That's really all I have to say. The only other comp I'd make is Henry Mckenna. Henry Mckenna is $50 to $60 these days, and I would get that every day. That's a 10-year bottled in bond against this 7-year bottled in bond. The same basic juice, probably a little less nutty and brash than this as general profile. And I'm team Henry Mckenna, even though the branding is god-awful. I absolutely hate the Henry Mckenna branding. All right, y'all. I hope you dug that little overview, these whiskeys. I did. It was delightful. Fun little tasting. Great way to spend 30 minutes on a Saturday. After I edited it, like 20-ish. We'll see y'all on Thursday, hopefully 8 o'clock. Or we'll catch you back here next Monday when I drop the next video. What will that be? I don't know. But it's probably going to be dank. Till then, keep it neat. Cheers, guys.